Okay, here we are in the first Third Thursday seminar series or webinar series sponsored by our good friends over at AMA Waterways. And I must admit that before we get started, this is a do-over. This is a mulligan because 41 minutes into this afternoon's program, we got hit by the technical snafu and everything went black. And because we had, I don't know, we probably had 10,000 emails come rifling in over the system saying, what are you doing? We want to redo. It was at least 10,000 emails. So we decided to do a redo tonight. So I have on the phone Dan Chappelle, our guest speaker today. But before we get to Dan, let me cover a few things I wanted to mention, and I did mention this afternoon. Number one, I just flipped over to a new photograph. And the reason I did that, ladies and gentlemen, was to remind you that you are not in the used car business. You are not a dentist. You're not selling computers. You're not working at Staples. What you're looking at is your business. You are in the business to putting people in those chairs in beautiful places around the world. And I think that you are in the best industry there is. And I also think that your future lies entirely in your hands. You can be as successful as you want to be. You don't have to buy anything. You have good suppliers. You have a marketplace. You have people who want to see the world. You have baby boomers getting older and older every day. They realize that they have to travel now or never. Everything's falling into place. And that picture is to remind you that you are in the driver's seat. Now, today we're going to be talking about the affluent traveler. But before we do, I wanted to, this was kind of funny. This sounds like I called, I was a fortune teller. I told the group that in the event of the internet, don't get upset, just go back to work and we'll square things up. Well, Dan and I are now squaring things up because be careful what you plan, what you hope for, because you just might get it, Dan. And nobody's listening on the telephone, so I'm not going to worry about this slide. And here's our guest, Charles Van Elton from AMA Waterways and Dan Chappelle. Now, the bad news is that Charles waxed eloquent this afternoon. He had a good session with us for 10 minutes, sharing his thoughts on a very important word. He couldn't make tonight's program, so I'm going to speak on Charles's behalf. The one piece of advice that Charles wanted to leave with you folks was the idea and the challenge of the word commitment. You have to commit to yourself that you are going to make your business grow. You're going to commit to yourself that you're going to pay the price to become successful in selling travel-related products to your selected marketplace. And commitment is a number of things. You have to commit to your business. You have to commit to research. You have to commit to study. You have to commit to getting to know your suppliers. You have to commit to taking fam trips. If you want to make your business successful, you have to commit. You have to believe. You have to make things happen. And one of the things that Charles highlighted was in the dollar sign. The S in the dollar sign stands for service. You have to provide your clientele with a service that not only is good, not only is great, but it's wow. You have to deliver what I consider to be wow service, especially in the affluent area, because these people expect more. They're going to pay for more, but they expect more. And therefore, if you're going to enter into this segment, you have to commit to the segment that you are going to pay your dues. You're going to pay your price. And as Dan is going to point out in a moment, it's going to take time. You're not going to commit yourself to an afternoon and think you're going to become successful. It just doesn't work that way. So I hope I very quickly reiterated what Charles Van Elton shared with us, the Director of Field Sales from AMA Waterways and the company who's making these seminars worthwhile. I felt so bad when we crashed this afternoon, but Charles and everybody else seemed to understand. Now, the one piece of advice that I want to leave with you before we turn over to the affluent traveler and Dan Chappelle is that the travelers are busy people. They have things to do. They have a full plate, as does everybody. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has a full plate, but they are busy people, and they don't have the time for you or anyone else to waste their time. They need somebody. They want to find somebody they can trust and they can believe in. They want to find somebody who knows their business, who can give solid recommendations. They want somebody who can deliver value not once, not twice, but consistently. And they want somebody who is available to them, who answers the phone, who returns phone calls, who they can speak to when they want to speak with them. Now, that's not unlike, it shouldn't be unlike everybody, but the affluent, the busy people, the wealthy people, they are busy to getting things when they want it because they expect high and they pay high. So I don't want you to think that this is a segment that has easy entry. The payoff is huge, but the commitment has to be huge as well. And I offered the folks today, and I'll offer to anyone who's listening to this rerun, I have a 12-word marketing plan. It's a free special report I'd like to send to you. Send me an email. However, the email you're seeing on the screen right now is wrong. It's mike@mikemarshev.com. That's my email. Send me an email. But don't put /12. Don't do that. Put 12 in the subject box. That'll work. mike@mikemarshev.com. That's the email. Send me an email. But then in the subject box, put the number 12. I'll know what that means, and I'll send you a complimentary copy of my 12-word marketing plan, which I think is an easy read, it's a fun read, it's an enjoyable read, and it'll also be very meaningful to your future. So, Charles Van Elton opened up with the idea of commitment, and I opened up with the idea that you can't waste people's time. You have to pay your dues. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to our guest now, Dan Chappell. And let me just give you a little information about who Dan is. Dan has been in the business, I think, about 1,000 years. I'm not sure, but it must be pretty close to 1,000 years. I met Dan a long time ago, but before I met Dan, he was an owner of a travel agency, so he knows the business. He knows what he's talking about. And he was so successful, he was asked to join a major consortium. And that's where I met Dan years ago, at a major consortium. And since then, he wanted to move on, and he became an executive at a luxury cruise line. So there's no better person to have on the line than Dan Chappell, who knows the business, who walks the talk, who knows sales, knows marketing, knows luxury. He knows everything, and I think he's 1,000 years old. So he's got the whole package going for him. So with that, Dan, I want to welcome you for the second time today to the Mulligan, to the do-over, and hopefully my friend, this one works.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I might add, Dan, that when the program crashed, I immediately called up AMA Waterways, our sponsor, our supporter for this program, and I blamed you. So you know that it wasn't my fault.
Well, I'm a glutton for punishment. I could do that, but yeah, when it comes to mulligans, I think the way I play golf, I probably need a whole bucket of balls to take care of that one.
I just love these travel agents. They're professionals, and they were so kind. They were very quick to come to my aid, saying, Mike, don't jump off the bridge. Technology happens. We understand. And I was so grateful that we're dealing with such a good group of travel professionals. And I might add, remember I said 57%, Dan, is the benchmark. We had 51%. I was off. We had 51%. You had called 50.
So who won that bet? I think I got that.
I think you won the bet. You said 50. I said 57, and it was. Let me see. I have the numbers here. It was 320 registered, and there was 177. So I think that was pretty close to 50%. But in any event, close enough.
Yeah.
So Dan, let's kick things off. People here are busy. You're busy. I'm busy. This is the second time, so let's cut right to the chase. And what's wealthy? What does that mean? We're talking about wealthy. What does wealthy mean, Dan?
Well, you know what? That's a great question, Mike, because wealth means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To some people, and actually most people are going to think of wealth in terms of money. A lot of money. They're going to think Bill Gates. They're going to think Jeff Bezos. They're going to think people like that. But there's a lot of definition. I define wealth not just in terms of money, although that's a big piece of it. But, me and a number of other people, we like to think of it as time. wealth in terms of time. Time is the one thing we can never get back. We can lose all the money in the world, but we can gain it back. Time we can't do. And, one of the reasons I left my corporate job was, I was traveling 200 days out of the year. And I was missing proms and homecomings and dances and, birthdays and anniversaries and special events that, you can never get that back. So for me, my definition, yeah, there's a lot of money there, but two, more importantly to me it was about time. So everyone has their own definition of what that is, and I think everybody will include money in it, but how that balances out between time, money, and anything else that they may want to have a wealth of knowledge could be, something that's defined as wealth. It's all up to the individual.
So when we're approaching the wealthy travel agent of the segment, we're going after the affluent. It doesn't equate to, hey, you have to have $1 billion or else you're not falling into that category. The market then becomes pretty large. The prospect pool then becomes larger than perhaps a lot of people think at first.
Absolutely, because the affluent traveler is not so much about wealth. Being the affluent traveler is more of a lifestyle choice. And having worked for a luxury cruise line, I can tell you who I would see when I got on board. And it didn't matter if I was on the one I worked for or any of the others. It all pretty much looked the same. And the affluent traveler kind of falls into about three different categories. The first one being that, one, it's a lifestyle. Two, they're active people. They may be retired, they may be a little, in their 60s, 70s, 50s, whatever, but they're active, and they're active in three ways, primarily. They're active professionally, they're active socially, and they're active physically. So professionally, they may be retired. It may be a doctor who's retired, but he still goes into practice once a week to kind of keep up on things, or a business person who sold their company but still works as a consultant. Socially, they're members of clubs, organizations. They like to do things together. They thrive and get energy from other people. One of the important things to remember about this is they like to travel together. So they tend to travel with their friends or their family. So, forget just selling to the wealthy or the affluent. Anytime you're making a sale to anyone, you should always ask a question. Do you have friends or family that like to travel with you on your vacation? The answer is probably going to be yes. And, whether or not they book with you or not depends on whether you ask. So that's an important thing there as well. And then physically active. I mean, they're into hiking and climbing and golf and running and walking and just, today's active traveler is much different than those of our parents' generation. I can remember, I'm in my early 50s. My folks, when they were my age, were very, very sedentary. I mean, they didn't move at all. But, and yet I hike 15 miles a week, and I'm out, I'm active. It's a very different type of a lifestyle. So, but that's who you see when you go on board. They tend to be aspirational. They aspire. There's a lot of people out there that aspire to that lifestyle of the wealthy traveler. And if you think about it, we all tend to aspire in certain ways. There's a great commercial. It was back, probably back 15 years ago. It's called Stanley Johnson commercial. And Stanley Johnson came up and he said, "Hi, I'm Stanley Johnson, and I've got this beautiful house, this beautiful family, this great new car, my nice pool, my grill, and my club, but I'm in debt up to my eyeballs." That's an aspirational buyer. You always have those. And to find them, just go out in the driveway, walk out in your neighborhood, look down the street, look at the cars in the driveway. If you see a Mercedes-Benz sitting out there, probably C-Class, that's an aspirational buyer, because Mercedes actually created that market. That's part of what they did when they made luxury accessible. And that's what you see with a lot of the travel brands. Luxury is accessible, particularly in the river cruise market. River cruise is a huge, booming business, and people can buy into that much more inexpensively than traditional old world type luxury that's thought of as stodgy and stuck up and that kind of thing. No, that's not today's affluent traveler. Today's affluent traveler is a pretty cool person. And then you always have those people out there who are, who do have money. They're what I would call, and I've read a book recently called The Middle Class Millionaire. They're people, they've got money, they're self-made, and that market segment's due to double in the next 10 years or so. So there's a lot of potential customers out there. The prospects are out there, and you start thinking about, the people I've described to you. You know people like that. You know the people that are at the country club. You know the people who are the Jones, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And you know the guys that have made a little bit of money. The millionaire next door philosophy is part of that. The guy that owns the machine shop down the street.
Well, Dan, let me interject a thought as it crosses my mind. And when talking about wealth and who they are, I think there's an inherent fear in people, in people in general, but in salespeople, that when they feel out of their realm, when they feel out of their comfort zone, they get frightened, and they have cold call reluctance or phone reluctance, whatever it is, reluctance to make calls. And sometimes we put the wealthy in our mind as people who are above us, that they're somehow in a different category and they're above us, because I just sell these cruises, and now I have to go sell a around the world cruise or a cruise to Antarctica, and I don't feel comfortable with that because of the people I'm talking to. Well, I think that, and you alluded to it, Dan, that these people are approachable, and I want to use a crazy scenario that guys will understand. That when we were younger, in high school or in college, and we saw this, what we termed to be a beautiful woman, we would figure, that she would never go out with me, so you'd never ask her out. You never ask her for coffee. You never asked her to a movie, because you thought, she would never want to go out with me. And if you ask the woman what the problem is, she says, nobody will talk to me. I don't understand it. Nobody approaches me and asks me out to a movie. And I think the wealthy are the same way, is that we could shy away from them because we're frightened of them. And they're saying, why doesn't anybody come and ask me for my business?
Exactly. It's not their problem. It's our problem.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a fear that you don't have to have.
Exactly. It's a fear. And what I have found in my career, my life, both personal and professional, is that action cures fear.
Bingo! I love that. Yes, I love that.
It's something that a very personal thing for me happened when I was in college. I sold books door to door, and as a lot of college students do. And I was sent 3,000 miles from home, and I didn't know anybody, and it was I was out there on my own. And the very first day, here I was, this kid, I was full of vigor, and I was pretty cocky and confident. And I can sell anything to anybody. Well, the very first door I went and knocked on, I had it slammed in my face, and I was like, whoa, that just kind of threw me for a loop. It stunned me. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I hung out in a McDonald's for a couple days, and my sales manager contacted me.
And that's where your cholesterol started to spike. It hasn't come down since, but go ahead.
Exactly. That scared the hell out of me. And so I'm sitting there, and the guy, I have to, back then they didn't have cell phones, but I checked in with my sales manager, and he said, look, sit tight, I'll be out there tomorrow, I'm going to go out with you. And so he did. I was afraid to go knock on doors after it got slammed in my face, because they told me it's only going to happen a couple times in the whole summer. Well, for me, it happened on the very first door.
Right.
And that intimidated me. That scared me. So he comes out, and he says, come with me. Follow me. We ran up to the first door, knocked on the door, no thank you. Second door, no thank you. Third door, sure, come on in. Let's see what you got. Showed it. Nah, they weren't interested. Fine. Next door, no. Second door, yeah, come on in. And they ended up buying. Okay. Well, I didn't get the commission. He was the one doing it. But what I saw, what I learned, and that has stuck with me now, for, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's been over 35 years. That what has stuck with me out of that is that action cures fear. The fear was in my mind, and I could easily overcome that. I just saw somebody, I said, wow, what the heck was I afraid of? The same thing is true when you're dealing with affluent travelers. They're just like us. They put their pants on every day. In fact, but you probably heard the expression, the higher you go in any organization, the nicer the people are. It's true. And I'm not going to say the people you need to be targeting are Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and, the billionaires of the world. If you're going to target people, you need to be targeting people that are at the vice president, director levels in those companies. Because Jeff Bezos, he's got his own team of people that plan his travel. But the people that work for him, they come to travel agents. And they want people who are going to take care of them. And that's really, what's out there. So if you were to, the fear, the intimidation, it's real, but it's in your head. And it's something that you have to deal with. It's part of the mindset of dealing with an affluent traveler is you have to overcome that. You have to think about, I have a session in one of my talks that I do, and it's about, your relationship with money. What number are you comfortable asking for? Because if you're only comfortable asking for $1,000, it's probably in the business for you. You have to be able to ask for $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 and more for vacation. And that may be more than you've ever spent on a house or condo or something else. But you have to, in order to be successful selling to the affluent, that kind of money to them is okay. It's still a lot of money, but proportionately it might be like you spending $5,000. So the point here is don't sell out of your own pocket. You got to get comfortable asking for money that you probably haven't thought about doing before. If you were selling a house, no problem.
You shared that the other day when we were on the phone talking, I shared a story with you that I'll share to the listeners tonight, and that is I sailed down the Caribbean in sailboats, and a guy came up to me once and he called it a yacht, and he said, how much do those yachts cost? And I thought he was referring to a 46-foot sailboat. And I said, well, they're pretty expensive. He says, well, how expensive? And I said, well, it could be, $10,000 to $15,000 for the week, is what I told him. And I kind of hesitated. It's expensive. I quote, it's $15,000 for the week. And he says, my father-in-law wants to rent one for the week. And I said, well, that's what I have to say. So about 6 months later, I asked this fellow, I said, hey, did your father-in-law ever charter that yacht? And he said, yes, he did. And I said, may I ask what he paid for it? And he said, yeah, he paid $125,000 because he wanted, his definition of a yacht was different than my definition of a yacht, and his definition of expensive was different than my definition of expensive. And that was a real eye-opener, and I wanted to underscore what Dan just said, and that is when you're dealing with people, you can't sell out of your pocket because all pockets are different. And my 15 was his 125. So that was a lesson well learned early in my career, Dan.
And how would you have gotten past that? I'm going to ask questions now. How would you have known that his number was 125 instead of the 15 that you had?
Well, I think by probing a little bit deeper and say, what did he have in mind? And it would have brought me different from a 46-foot sailboat to a 125-foot stink pot. Well, I call it a stink pot because that's what you call these big fish.
Exactly. So we have to ask lots of questions.
Yeah, you have to ask questions. Yeah, before coming out with a quote. Yep, exactly right.
Right.
So Dan, let's move on to question number 2. I'm committed. I'm going to commit to this luxury of affluent traveler. I'm going to go pay my dues, attend some seminars, buy the books, do my homework, do my research. Now, where do I find these people? How do I start building my database?
Well, it's a great question. And let's get back before we move into that. Let's start with the commitment. Back to what Charles had talked about in round 1. You have to commit to this segment. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. So when we say commit to it, part of what you need to do before you go out and try to find the customer, to find the prospects, you have to figure out what's your niche. What is your segment? Where are you going to add value to the transaction? As Mike, as you pointed out, they're very, very busy people. So in order to get to them, you need to find out, what it is that they're looking for, and you have to be able to serve that need. And you have to be dialed in on what that is. And when I say dialed in, river cruising is a pretty broad subject. Just like cruising in general. I'm a cruise specialist. Well, what does that mean? Worldwide, there's probably 1,000 cruise ships, various different things. In river cruising, there's a number of different cruise lines at various levels, from entry level to luxury levels, and a few in between there, and the itineraries and the regions. So you have to really dig in deeper than just say I'm a river cruise specialist, and dig into a region or dig into a line and truly specialize in what that is so that you can add value. Now, how do you find prospects? Well, it's a great question, because now that you're in a position that you can add value, well, then you start having conversations with people. And the easiest way to start finding prospects is look at your current database. And if you don't have a database, look at your current network. And if people tell me they don't have one, are you on Facebook? Yeah. Well, are you on LinkedIn? Yeah. Well, then you got networks. Start looking at that. Do you go to the doctor? Yeah. Okay. Doctor's in your network. Do you have a lawyer? Yeah, maybe. Well, he's in your network. Okay. Look at those. That's what we call your immediate circle of influence. These are the people that you deal with on a fairly regular basis, and you can talk to them. Okay. And they're a great, if they're not your actual customer, they're a great source of referrals. Okay, because they all have their own, circle of influence, their own people that they're close to, and if they like to help their friends out. So you may be working with an acquaintance of someone, and I hope this is all making sense, because it gets kind of complicated, but it's really simple. It's just a systematic way of working through your network to find people that you want as your customer, and work with them and reach out to them, and you pick up the phone and you call them, or you send them an email and let them know what you're doing and how you do it. Now, I don't like the canned, elevator pitch that most people have, and that a lot of people teach you how to do, because it sounds like a resume, and most resumes sound fake. So if you ask me what I do, I'm in the business of creating great experiences for my clients. Well, what does that do? That provokes more questions. Okay, they go, well, what does that mean? And you start talking about what you do. So you're creating a conversation, and you're creating relationships as you go through. So that's one way to do it, to get started. The other thing is to be a joiner. Join organizations. Now, most people who are affluent or affluent travelers they tend to be fairly well educated. They tend to join organizations and support charitable organizations and the arts. Those are great organizations to join. Now, I'm not going to advocate that you join an organization just to find customers. It needs to be something that you're pretty passionate about. But once you get in there, then you start meeting people. And you don't put a hard sell on. You just start creating the relationships. Remember, this is a commitment. This is going to take time. This is going to take you some time to build this business up. But you start by laying the groundwork and creating relationships with people.
The idea I tossed out at you the other day that we both agreed made sense, and because it takes time and because the relationship, I've always thought that it's easier for me, Dan, to answer the phone than it is to dial out. Okay, when my phone rings, it's easy. You pick it up and you can answer the phone. And if I came over to your house, I would be on my best behavior. But if you came into my house, then I'm in control and I can make you feel comfortable or welcome and whatever. So with that in mind, I want people to come to me, to call me. If you call me, I can handle the call. If you come to my house, I can set the environment up. And the same thing is in business. And I think what one strategy would be on where to find prospects is to have the prospects come to you. And you do that by writing an article, something that has to do with affluency and the wealthy traveler. Write a small article, 350 to 500 words, maybe 700 words, like you do in the Agent at Home magazine. And in your byline, invite them in to for more information on an affluent territory, river cruising, if you will. Then you offer to put that article in corporate newsletters, community newsletters, Rotary, whatever it is. You send this article out, it gets published, they read it, you're the expert. They come back to you for more information, and a prospect has just raised his hand.
Yeah, that works. That's a great way, because what that does is it establishes you as an expert.
Bingo, there it is.
And quite frankly, you need to be that, because when they start calling you, you better know what you're talking about. But the fact from just going from talking about something to being published is a huge step in your credibility process.
Right.
People will gravitate to you once you've done that, and it's proven time and time again.
But Dan, that brings up another little tip, and that is that if what you do works, if you get people's attention, and I know, one of the first things they're going to do when they get home from the networking meeting or wherever you met them is they're going to go to your website to check you out. And if your website if it has little cartoons, or if it's not done well, then discussion over. So minimum, you have to have a homepage on your website that looks professional and clean and squared away, as does your business card.
Absolutely. I'm going to share this with you, and some people may disagree with it, but I don't have business cards. I collect business cards.
Yep.
And I immediately then will reach out, because that's how I do my contact. My business card is my website.
Right.
So it is done. If you're going to spend money anywhere, make sure you have a good quality site that when people come to it, it looks professional. It exudes what you're claiming that you are.
Correct.
If you're a river cruise specialist, you make sure that it sings river cruising, and not at a budget level, but at a higher level, at a luxury level, and make it feel, because that's today's storefront. People don't walk down the street and open the door into a brick and mortar that much anymore. For most people, your storefront is exactly what they see. It's your calling card. It's your website.
Well, that's a major error in 80. I got to say 80%, 70% of businesses today, Dan. I don't know if you've picked up on this, but if you Google bicycles, if you Google bicycles, it means that you have an interest in bicycles. So you go and you see a website, and you click on the website. Now, Dan, what were you interested in? Bicycles. Yeah. So now I hit the link, and I go to a guy's website, and I'm looking at something that doesn't have anything to do with bicycles, because bicycles is on page 48. And if I'm interested in bicycles, hit me with bicycles as soon as I get to your website. And if I go to your website and you're an affluent travel supplier, the first thing I should see is the word either affluent or river cruising or Antarctica or whatever it is I'm Googling, to tell me I just came to the right place. And nobody does that. Exactly. Go check it out yourself. I'm telling you, it's the biggest error that small businesses make today, is that home site is back to Google.
Yeah. If you go to my website, wealthytravelagent.com, on the home page, you're going to see everything I do. Everything that I do, it's right there up front. And if you want more information, then you can dig deeper. Mm-hmm. But my objective and the objective of the audience is to get people to that front page.
Right.
Because when they see what you have to offer, then they're going to make a split-second judgment call whether they want to do business with you or not. It's that simple.
Yep.
There's not a lollygagging, a lot of time to lollygag around there. So as part of your commitment to your business, you need to invest in your website and look good. So, and I know a lot of host agencies and consortia, they'll provide, for lack of another term, kind of cookie-cutter sites, and a lot of them are really good. So some of them you can customize, some of them you can't. You may want to invest outside of that, depending on what you want to do. But make sure that their first impression of you is a strong one. And make sure that you also have someplace that they can sign up to get on a list.
Yeah, you want to capture that. You want to capture their name and email for sure. And I'll throw this out, and I think I mean what I'm about to say, is that by and large, your website is not going to land you the business, but your website could most definitely cause you not to get the business.
Absolutely. I agree with that. One of your objectives is is really, and this is why it's a long-term thing, is to start building your list, because you're going to want to reach out and show your expertise and show your specialization over and over and over again. It takes, you're going to probably, they're not going to buy the first time they get an email from you or a phone call from you.
Right.
They're not going to buy on the second, third, or fourth. They're not even going to consider it typically until about the fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth time. So you need to be creating value and reaching out, whether it's through the phone calls, through the email, through your website, number of different ways that you can do that to create the value. But always make sure there's a principle in marketing. It's called recency and frequency. People buy from who contacted them most recently and most frequently. So you want to be that person.
Yep. Now, and the caveat there, Dan, is that, and this is where the skill comes in, is recent and frequent, but not too frequent and not too recent. I mean, you can send, if Dan Chappelle sends me 18 emails today, I don't think that's helping you. So the skill is that it's the separation factor, but you don't want to go out of their mind, but you don't want them to forget about you, and you don't want to become a nuisance.
It's about what you want to look for.
Yep. So that's where the skill comes in.
Yeah, and so what a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking, well, they're talking about websites, they're talking about e-marketing, they're talking about all this. What does this have to do with selling to the fluent traveler? Well, it has everything to do with it, because it's part of what you're doing is building the rapport and building the relationship with a potential customer. And when that customer buys, if we're talking, commas in your commissions, it's worth the effort that you're going to be putting in. You're going to cultivate this business over a period of time. And, once the momentum starts, it will start going. Now, we talk about working your relationships. So one of the great things is once you get in there and you've made a sale, you start asking for referrals. If you do a good job, their expectations are high. Okay? They're spending a lot of money with you. They expect you to service them well. Now, one thing about affluent travelers is they tend to be pretty loyal. They know what they want pretty much going in. They have a pretty good idea of what it costs. They've got their passports. You don't have to go through all of that with them. They want someone who is going to take care of them, someone that they can depend on. And that's where you really have to step up. And this is where you earn your commission. This is where you earn your fees. A lot of them will pay fees on top of the commission just to make sure that you take care of it for them. And as long as you do it right, they don't even look at other people, other agents, once they're in. I mean, I've had personal experience with this. This is something that once you become part of their inner circle, and they trust you, then sky's the limit. They'll hand you everything, even if you can't handle it. I've had customers that they I handled a lot of their travel, but then it got so complicated I couldn't do it. I ended up having to refer some of it out for a fee. I got the feedback, but I had to carefully hand select who I chose to help with this as part of my team. And, but I was always that connection there. You never lose that connection because they're your customers. You have that relationship.
Well, I want to toss this in, Dan, while I think of it. It's probably under Section 4 here about the mistakes. I'm not sure, but I want to make this clear to the listeners, is that, and I want you to, I'm not being fresh or I'm not being cute, but just the fact that people have a lot of money doesn't mean that they're smart. And what I mean,
it's true. It's true.
It's very true. It's very true. And I want to just bring in a point that I know wealthy people. I know well-traveled people. I know people who could buy the ship. I know these people, and yet when they get to the airport, they forgot to pack their shoes. I mean, I know that. I know of a company that the president got to Japan and he couldn't get off the airplane because he didn't have the right paperwork. I mean, you know, this story's traveled people out there too. So don't think that because you're talking to somebody with a heavy wallet that you don't provide a huge service in the form of a checklist, in the form of travel tips, in the form of don't forget this. And the older they get, Dan, and you know this because you're just about 3 years short of being a fossil, is that you forget things that you never forgot when you were 40. You know, you forgot the pack. I got the toothbrush, but gee, I forgot the toothpaste. And I'm being a little bit funny, but I'm not, because you have such an important role to play with these people. My point is, don't think they know it all because they don't know much. That's not right either. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So what you're providing, part of the service you're providing, is a very valuable add-on value to their overall experience. I mean, this is what they're really buying. They're buying the experience, and you're part of that.
Right.
So as part of what you do is investing in your continuing education. So, if you're going to specialize in river cruising of a particular region, you need to be willing to invest your own money and go on that trip as a passenger, even if there's not a FAM rate available, because this is your business. This is like this is the equivalent of you paying for college for yourself to invest in your career. But you need to know the inside and out, all the nuances of the product. You need to know the region. You need to know the restaurants. You need to get to know the doorman at some of the hotels. The climate for certain times of the year. I mean, we don't even think about the climate. Right now, for instance, I think Washington, D.C. is expecting 2 feet of snow. I was there a week ago, and it was 60 degrees. I don't think about that. So, but that's our job. It's part of the service that we provide. And, it's not rocket science.
No.
It's really about adopting a service attitude and about one of specialization, something that you can add value to. You don't want to get, competing on price. The affluent travelers, are they cognizant of the price? Absolutely. Are they, one of my customers used to tell me, said, Dan, I don't mind you making a little money on me, but I don't want you getting fat either. And
Right.
It's some really good advice, because as long as you're providing good value, then they're willing to pay for it and continuously use your services. I can't overemphasize that enough. The loyalty factor is very, very common with affluent travelers, but you got to earn it. It's not something that they just give quite easily. And your relationship with them is usually one that starts fairly quickly, but can evolve over time. And you need to be willing to invest in your relationships. And when I say your relationships, I'm talking about with your prospects, your current customers, but your partners, your supplier. You need to invest in them as well, because that is key. Your success is all wrapped around that, and it's a long-term investment. It's not what have you done for me lately? I talk about in my work, I talk about the lifetime value of a customer. Okay? Well, what is the lifetime value of your relationship with a particular vendor? Think about that and factor that into how you select what your specialization is. It's selling to the affluent traveler is a wonderful way to make a living. It's a wonderful lifestyle that you become accustomed to. But it's also one that you got to work your tail off, and sometimes you got to do it at hours you don't want to do. But remember, the size of that check is a lot bigger. The number of transactions you're doing. I'm gonna throw this out there. Let's say your goal is to earn $100,000. Okay. Well, if you're doing mass and premium market stuff, you're probably looking at commissions about $100 to $200. But if you're looking at affluent travel product, where like river cruising, for instance, where average commission is probably about $1,000. Look at the number of transactions it takes. You can do a lot if you're only doing 100 transactions in a year or less. You can afford to spend a lot more time servicing at a higher level than you can these $100 and $200 commission stuff. Because if these ones that are $100 and $200 commissions, those are the ones you're doing 800 to 1,000 transactions instead of 80 to 100.
Yep.
Big difference, and you got to think about it that way.
For sure. Hey, I was thinking of a contact, and I don't know. You correct me, or I want your input on this. But One of the things, because we're dealing with people, we're getting to these emails and texting and Facebooks and LinkedIn's, all that stuff. But I think that people still look forward to and read a well-written personal letter. And I think,
Absolutely.
when number three, I'm thinking of is how to approach the prospect. If you write, and it doesn't have to be handwritten, it could be on your computer, but it'd be sent snail mail. But if you send an envelope with a letter of introduction, asking to meet for a cup of coffee or whatever it is, I think that if you write 20 of those, I think you're going to get a handful of takers, two or three or four. I don't know. I think it's worth a try because the pendulum is swinging back. People want personalization. The affluent doesn't want to deal with an unknown person. They want to be able to look at them, smile at them, touch them, scream at them if they have to. And I think an approach might be, I want you to investigate this out there in travel land. Send a nice, well-written, professional introductory letter introducing yourself and your services, and I think you might come up with something.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. In fact, I actually use handwritten thank you notes still.
And that's another story. Yeah, handwritten thank you. They're
Yeah,
powerful, but no one
yeah,
does it.
very, very powerful.
Everyone agrees, Dan, but
Yeah,
nobody does them.
exactly. You know, well, one, it's an investment because to get nice framed stationery embossed with your, your initials on it, or some, putting some nice quality stuff together, it's an investment.
Hmm.
And postage, I mean, it's all things. It's not convenient. It's not easy like email it,
Yeah.
but it's highly, highly effective. I mean, how many of us, we still get the mail? Okay, what do you get in the mail these days?
Yeah,
I can
bills
tell you,
and
Christmas, yeah, holiday cards, for instance. We just passed the holidays. I can remember 5 years ago, we would probably get 50 Christmas cards.
right.
This year, I think we got less than 10, maybe 5 at the most, because people are sending e-cards and stuff like that. Well, I look forward to those cards.
Yep.
So people still like to open the mail, and particularly when you get a handwritten or just a personal letter or response, you've stepped up your game compared to what everybody else is doing. And these are the little things that affluent travelers look for. They are very, very busy people, but it's the details. It's the little things that they look for. What's the difference between a Ritz-Carlton and a Holiday Inn? It's the details. It's still the same room.
Yep.
The furnishings might be a little bit different, but it's the personal touch and the service and the way they take care of you and the way they respond to you. That's what makes the difference.
Hey, Dan,
That's
let me go. I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now. Number one is that listening to a webinar these days, speaking of people's times, and I know that the perfect one is, 15 to 20 minutes, and you and I both go longer than that. Someone said smarter than us, leave them wanting more. So I'm going to move on through this webinar now. And if people want more, then they can contact us and you and I can go and we can do a part 2. But I'm going to cut it short.
absolutely.
I'm going to cut it short now. And let me go to the next slide, Dan, because this is all you and I, we could talk all night, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
I asked Dan to recommend a couple of books, folks, and the ones he did, when you want to, immerse yourself in the affluent mindset. I have not read either one of these, Dan. So you have The Middle Class Millionaire by Russ Allen Prince and Louis Schiff, and then The Millionaire Real Estate. And tell me about the non-industry slant, Dan. Go ahead.
I'm a huge proponent of looking outside of our industry and other industries to see what people are doing to be successful. And the place I look at probably most frequently is actually the real estate. Because if you think about it like this, we don't own the product, we're paid on commission, and we're paid, when the people travel. Well, in real estate, they don't own the product, they're paid on commission, and they get paid at closing. So essentially, it's the same business model, but yet there's a lot more real estate agents, and there's a lot more very successful real estate agents. Now, this book was written by Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams Real Estate Firm. And it's a very strong business approach to selling real estate and prospecting. And in the prospecting field for them, it's about getting listings. And there's charts and there's things, and you can get some online worksheets and stuff that work with that. But I'm a huge believer in emulating successful people. It doesn't matter if they're successful travel agents or successful real estate professionals or successful, in other areas. You can always take something from them. The middle class millionaire, that helps you understand the market. It helps you understand the mentality and the mindset of the people that we're trying to work with, that we're selling to, because it's evolved. $1 million ain't what it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to be that that was you were the head of Monopoly, but now $1 million is every other house in the neighborhood.
Hey, I didn't buy a lottery ticket until it got up to 750 million. I said, why bother?
So there's and one of the things that I really I hike a lot, so I listen to audiobooks. Reading is a great way to expand your horizons and think outside of the box, and find best practices from other businesses and industries that you can use to help benefit your business. And I do it all the time. I study different industries. I study different things. I also, I use coaching. I don't know if, how you are with that, Mike, but, at various times throughout my career, I've employed coaches.
I think everybody should, anybody who's skillful, anybody who's on the up climb as a coach, Olympic athletes, everybody who's really good, singers, celebrities, actors, they all have coaches. The better you are, the more you have a coach. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's helped me in my career as well. Whether it's been in sales, whether it's been product, whether it's been in teaching, it's there's a number of things, resources that are out there that can help you get there. Make sure that you choose the ones that are credible, though, because there's a lot of folks out there that really aren't qualified to be, coaching or mentoring or whatever. But at the end of the day, outside of the industry, I like to look there and I like to find the nuggets. And as I said, the real estate industry is so similar to what we do, and a lot of their best practices are phenomenal. So I look to those industries.
Perfect. Now, this here, I'd be remiss. Hey, Dan, look here. These are recommended books, right? The Middle Class Millionaire and the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, recommended, but these are highly recommended.
In fact, I recognize that name.
Yeah, these are absolutely highly. Now, one of them, of course, is How to Capture More River Cruise Business, and that was supported by my good friends at AMA Waterways. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I wrote Become the Exception. It's still a powerful book today. So any event, if anybody's interested in any of these, send me an email and I'll help you out. If anybody is interested in any of these, I say go to Amazon.com or your local bookseller. Send me an email here. And Dan, while we're on the final minutes here, tell people your email. So if they're interested in your Affluent Boot Camp, your academy, they could get in touch with you. So very slowly, give me your email.
Okay. I'll start with the web address. It's it's wealthytravelagent.com. And my email is Dan, D-A-N, at wealthytravelagent.com. And go to the website, check it out. You'll see what I do, what I offer, how I can help you in your quest to sell to the affluent traveler. I'll be more than happy to chat with you. Just shoot me an email or check out the website, fill out any forms, whatever. They all come to me. So it's like I said, the buck stops here. It all rolls up to me. So you'll hear from me directly on that. So. Perfect.
And I think that, there it is. Look at that. How clever am I? I even threw my website on there. And I mean, that's my email. I forgot I had that button there. And Dan, on the follow-up, I'll put that in writing so they know your email. And I wanted you to know, there's our February guest right there, Scott Keff, Senior VP Sales of Avoya Travel. Very fun guy, excellent sales aficionado. We'll have a lot of fun on the third Thursday of February talking with Scott Keff, and once again, a BDM from AMA Waterways. So that's what we're doing here. Dan, I want to thank you. Hey, and if you want more discussion on wealthy travel, we're going to be doing these once a month. So we have the first 4 months, but if you want Dan and myself to talk more about the wealthy traveler, let me know. Send me an email. I'm at mike@mikemarshev.com. And Dan, give me your email again. Dan,
wealthytravelagent.com.
Dan at thewealthytravelagent.com, all one word. So sorry about the mulligan today, folks. You know, stuff happens. I'm going to blame it on Dan. He's going to blame it on me. It was probably GoToMeeting's fault, but who cares? Thanks for listening. If we can help you, we're here. If not, 3rd February, Scott Keff. We're going to try this again, and next month we'll try to get it right. Dan, thanks so much for doing this twice today.
My pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
And you know, and I'm going to say something that's very sincere, my friend, that I listened both times to every word. I mean, we did it twice, but it was really cool 2 times. So thanks again. And it was almost like you were reading from a script, but I know you weren't because you're covering the same material. That makes you really good, man. You're really good.